The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as I heard my daughter's voice cut through the night air like a blade through silence. I was hunched under the hood of my battered Ford pickup at midnight, trying to coax life back into the engine that had been coughing like an old man with pneumonia for weeks. The garage door was open, letting in the cool Lake Erie breeze that carried the scent of rust and regret through our neighborhood. "You think Dad's clueless, Mom?" Ava's 17-year-old voice cracked with frustration. "You and Uncle Derek aren't even subtle anymore. The whole town knows." I froze, my hand still gripping the socket wrench. Uncle Derek. My wife Sophia's business partner at the architectural firm, the guy who'd been coming around for project meetings at increasingly odd hours. The same Derek who always managed to show up when I was conveniently working late at my auto shop. "Keep your voice down," Sophia hissed from inside our kitchen, "and don't be dramatic. Derek and I are professionals working on the Morrison contract, that's all." "Right," Ava shot back. "Is that why you bought new underwear last week? For professional meetings?" My stomach dropped like a stone into dark water. I'd noticed those purchases on our credit card statement, Victoria's Secret charges that Sophia had dismissed as treating myself. The same week she'd started working late 3 nights in a row. "You don't understand adult relationships," Sophia said, her voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to despise. "Your father and I, we're complicated." "Complicated enough that you're screwing his friend?" The slap echoed across our small backyard. I winced, not from the sound, but from the confirmation that my worst suspicions were crawling out of the shadows like cockroaches when the lights come on. I should have stormed inside. Should have confronted them both right there. Instead, I stayed crouched under the hood of my truck, listening to my marriage dissolve through a screen door while motor oil dripped onto my work boots. 22 years. 22 years of marriage. And this is how I find out my wife is cheating, eavesdropping on my own daughter calling her out. "Go to your room," Sophia commanded. "And if you mention this conversation to your father, you'll lose your car privileges until graduation." So footsteps stomped up our creaky stairs. A door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Then silence, except for the distant hum of traffic on Route 6 and the gentle lapping of lake waves against the shore 2 blocks away. I straightened slowly, my back protesting from hunching over the engine. Through the kitchen window, I could see Sophia pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. Even from here, I could tell she was agitated, her free hand gesturing wildly, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the overhead light. "It's fine," she was saying. "She's just being a teenager. No, Derek, she won't say anything." "Derek." There it was again. I wiped my hands on an old shop rag and considered my options. I could march inside and demand the truth. I could pretend I hadn't heard anything and let this cancer keep eating away at what was left of our family. Or I could do what 20 years of running a business in this tough neighborhood had taught me, gather information before making my move. I chose option 3. The next morning, I made coffee and scrambled eggs like nothing had happened. Sophia came downstairs in her power suit, navy blue with a crisp white blouse that probably cost more than I made in a week. She looked immaculate, as always. Not a hair out of place, makeup applied with surgical precision. "Morning," I said, sliding a plate across our kitchen counter. "Thanks." She didn't look up from her phone. "I'll be late tonight. The Morrison project is hitting a critical phase." "Morrison project?" I repeated, testing how the lie sounded in the morning light. "That's the big commercial development downtown, right?" "Mixed-use residential and retail," she said automatically. "Derek thinks we can wrap the preliminary designs by Friday if we put in the extra hours." Derek thinks. Derek says, Derek. "Maybe I should stop by the office sometime," I suggested. "Bring you dinner when you're working late." For the first time that morning, Sophia looked directly at me. Her green eyes, the same eyes that had captivated me when we met at a college party 25 years ago, held a flicker of something that might have been panic. "That's sweet, but will be buried in blueprints and zoning regulations. Very boring stuff. You'd hate it." "I might surprise you," I said. "I've always been interested in what you do." "Since when?" The question came out sharper than she probably intended. She softened her tone. "I mean, you have your garage, I have my firm. We've always kept our work separate." True enough. In the early years of our marriage, I'd tried to show interest in her career. But every time I asked about her projects or suggested visiting her office, she'd found reasons to discourage me. Eventually, I'd stopped asking. Now I wondered if that had been the plan all along. Ava trudged downstairs in ripped jeans and a band t-shirt, her dark hair, my hair, hanging in her face like a curtain. She grabbed an apple from the counter and avoided eye contact with both of us. "Morning, kiddo," I said. "Morning, Dad." She shot a glance at Sophia. Mom. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Sophia's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond to the obvious coldness in our daughter's voice. I'll drive you to school, I offered. I'll take the bus, Ava said quickly. I need to stop by Jenny's house first anyway. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She was lying. Jenny Morrison lived in the opposite direction from school, but I didn't call her out on it. The kid was caught in the middle of something she shouldn't have to deal with, and I wasn't going to make it worse by forcing a confrontation in front of her mother. After they both left, Sophia in her pristine BMW, Ava trudging toward the bus stop with her backpack slung over one shoulder. I sat alone in our kitchen and tried to process what my life had become. Our house felt different now, like someone had rearranged all the furniture while I was sleeping. The morning sunlight streaming through the windows seemed dimmer. The coffee tasted bitter. Even the familiar sounds of our neighborhood, dogs barking, cars starting, the distant whistle of the morning freight train, felt muted and strange. I'd built this life with my bare hands. Started my auto shop with a loan from Sophia's father and a dream of being my own boss. Worked 16-hour days for the first 5 years, coming home with grease under my fingernails and aching muscles, but proud of what I was building. Sophia had been supportive then, or at least I'd thought she was. She'd bring me lunch at the shop, brag to her friends about her husband, the entrepreneur. When had that changed? When had I become someone she was ashamed of? I pulled out my phone and did something I'd never done before. I looked up Derek Morrison's social media profiles. It didn't take long to find him. The guy practically lived online, posting photos of his expensive dinners, his weekend golf games, his luxury car. And there, buried in a set of photos from last month's Chamber of Commerce mixer, was a picture that made my stomach turn. Derek and Sophia standing close together by a dessert table, his hand resting on the small of her back. Her head was tilted toward him, laughing at something he'd said. They looked intimate, comfortable, like a couple. I scrolled through more photos. Derek at a restaurant I recognized, the upscale steakhouse downtown where Sophia claimed she'd had a client dinner 2 weeks ago. Derek at the Lakeside Motel where I'd noticed charges on our credit card that Sophia had explained as lunch meetings with out-of-town investors. The pieces were falling into place like a puzzle I'd been trying to solve without realizing it. All those late nights, unexplained expenses, new clothes, and sudden interest in going to the gym. The way she'd started password protecting her phone and keeping it face down during dinner. How she'd grown distant, critical, always finding fault with everything I did. I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't being paranoid. My wife was having an affair with Derek Morrison, and apparently everyone in town knew except me. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I spent the morning at my shop, pretending to work on Mrs. Henderson's Buick while my mind raced through possibilities. My hands moved automatically, checking fluid levels, testing belts, running diagnostics. But my thoughts were elsewhere. Tommy Kowalski, who owned the boxing gym next door, wandered over around 10 with 2 cups of coffee and his usual grin. "You look like someone ran over your dog," he said, handing me a cup. "What's eating you?" Tommy and I had been friends since high school. He'd gone into the Marines, done 2 tours overseas, then come back to open his gym in the building next to mine. He was the kind of guy who could read people like road signs, a useful skill when you're teaching angry teenagers how to channel their frustration into something productive. "Just tired," I said. "Bullshit." He leaned against Mrs. Henderson's car. "I've seen you work 18-hour days and still have energy to joke around. This is different. This is personal." I considered telling him everything. Tommy had always been a good listener, and he had a talent for cutting through nonsense to get to the heart of problems. But I wasn't ready to say the words out loud yet. Wasn't ready to make it real. "Sophia and I are going through a rough patch," I said finally. "Marriage counseling?" "She thinks everything's fine." Tommy nodded slowly. "The everything's fine stage. That's usually when everything's definitely not fine." "How's Linda?" I asked, changing the subject to his wife of 15 years. "Still putting up with me somehow?" He grinned, but then his expression grew serious. "Listen, Mike, I've been around long enough to recognize the signs of a man whose world is falling apart. Whatever's going on, don't try to handle it alone, and don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "Anything that ends with you in handcuffs or divorce court." I managed a laugh, though it felt forced. "I'll keep that in mind." After Tommy left, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week ago. I was going to follow my wife. The plan was simple. close the shop early, park near her office building, and see where she went after work. If she really was working late on the Morrison project, she'd stay at the firm. If she was lying... At 4:30, I locked up and drove downtown to Hartwell & Associates, the architectural firm where Sophia had worked for 8 years. Their office occupied the top 2 floors of the renovated Merchants Bank building, all glass and steel and modern efficiency. I parked across the street with a clear view of the employee parking garage exit. At 5:15, Derek Morrison's silver Lexus emerged from the garage. 2 minutes later, Sophia's BMW followed. They turned left on Main Street, heading toward the lake. I gave them a 30-second head start, then followed. They drove to the Lakeshore Inn, a shabby motel that had seen better decades. The kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask too many questions. Derek parked near the office. Sophia pulled into a spot 3 spaces away. I watched from the parking lot of a closed gas station across the street as Derek went into the motel office alone. 5 minutes later, he came out with a key and walked to room 237. Sophia followed a few minutes after that, looking around nervously before knocking on the door. Derek let her in. The door closed. I sat in my truck for an hour, watching that door and feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. This wasn't a business meeting. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was my wife of 22 years sneaking around with another man in a cheap motel room. When they finally emerged, Derek first, then Sophia 10 minutes later, I was ready. I'd already decided what my next move would be. I followed Derek to the parking lot of a trendy restaurant downtown, where he met up with another couple for what looked like a planned dinner. Clearly he'd told his wife he was working late too. I watched him laugh and shake hands with his dinner companions, playing the role of successful businessman and devoted husband. Meanwhile, Sophia drove home. By the time I got there 20 minutes later, she was already in the kitchen, heating up leftover Chinese food. "How was work?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said without looking up. "Derek and I barely made a dent in the Morrison plans. We'll probably have to work late again tomorrow." "That's dedication. It's what you do when you care about your career." The barb hit its mark. Sophia had always been ambitious, always pushing for the next promotion, the bigger project, the better office. When we first got married, I'd admired that drive. Now I wondered if she saw my contentment with running a small business as a character flaw. "Maybe you should ask for an assistant," I suggested. "Someone to help with the workload." "Derek is my assistant, in a way. We make a good team." "I'll bet you do," I thought. That night, after Sophia fell asleep, I did something I'd never done in 22 years of marriage. I went through her purse. Her phone was password protected, but her wallet revealed several interesting details. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, a membership card for a hotel chain that offered discreet accommodations for business travelers, and, tucked behind her driver's license, a business card for Dr. Patricia Reeves, a gynecologist in the next town over. Sophia had switched doctors 6 months ago without mentioning it. When I'd asked about her annual checkup, she'd said everything was fine and changed the subject. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and listening to my wife breathe beside me. The woman I'd shared a bed with for over 2 decades was a stranger. How long had she been lying to me? How many business meetings and client dinners had actually been rendezvous with Derek? And what was I going to do about it? The next morning brought an unexpected complication. I was having coffee and reading the local paper when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Mike Patterson?" "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Maya Chen, Sophia's sister. We need to talk." Maya. Sophia's younger sister, the Instagram influencer who lived in a trendy condo downtown and made her living posting photos of expensive meals and designer handbags. We'd never been close. She'd always treated me like I wasn't quite good enough for her sister, but she'd never called me directly before. "What about?" "Not over the phone. Can you meet me for coffee this afternoon? The grind on 5th Street, say 3 o'clock? "I'll be working." "This is about Sophia," Maya said. "Trust me, you'll want to hear what I have to say." She hung up before I could respond. I spent the rest of the morning wondering what Maya knew and why she wanted to talk to me. Sophia and her sister had always been close, sharing secrets and inside jokes that excluded everyone else. If Maya was reaching out to me, it meant something significant was happening. At 3 o'clock, I walked into The Grind, a trendy coffee shop that catered to the downtown business crowd. Maya was already there, sitting at a corner table with a complicated drink that probably cost more than I spent on lunch. She looked like a younger, more polished version of Sophia. Same blonde hair, same green eyes, but with an edge that suggested she was used to getting what she wanted. "Mike," she said, standing to give me a brief hug that felt more like a performance than genuine affection. "Thanks for coming." I ordered a regular coffee and sat down across from her. "What's this about?" Maya studied me for a moment, as if she was trying to decide how much to tell me. "How much do you know about what Sophia's been up to lately?" "She's been working a lot. The Morrison Project." "Right." Maya's smile was sharp. "The Morrison Project. Is that what she's calling it?" My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" "Mike, I like you. I always have, even if I haven't always shown it. You're a good guy, and you deserve better than what's happening to you." "Maya, just tell me what you know." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was Sophia and Derek at a restaurant, sitting on the same side of a booth, his arm around her shoulders. They were looking at each other like teenagers in love. "I took this last week," Maya said. "They didn't see me." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you have a right to know, and because—" She hesitated. "Because I think you should do something about it." "Like what?" Maya leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Like fight back. Like make them pay for what they're doing to you and Ava." There was something in her tone that made me uneasy. This wasn't just sisterly concern. Maya had an agenda. "What's in it for you?" I asked. "Let's just say Sophia and I haven't been getting along lately. She thinks she's better than everyone else, including family. Maybe it's time someone reminded her that actions have consequences." I studied Maya's face, trying to read her motives. She was beautiful, manipulative, and clearly angry about something. Getting involved with her seemed like a dangerous idea. But she was also offering me something I desperately needed, an ally who knew Sophia's secrets. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Maya smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I might have a chance to fight back. Maya's plan was elegantly simple and completely ruthless. Over the next hour, she laid out a strategy that would expose Sophia's affair while destroying her reputation in the process. It was the kind of scheme that required patience, timing, and a willingness to get my hands dirty. "The key," Maya explained, "is to let them think they're winning while we document everything. Sophia's always been arrogant. She'll get sloppy." "And then?" "Then we ruin her. Professionally, socially, completely." I should have walked away. Should have told Maya that I wasn't interested in playing games or seeking revenge. But sitting there in that coffee shop, looking at photos of my wife with another man, I felt something dark and hungry stirring in my chest. "What's the first step?" Maya's smile was predatory. "We make Sophia think you're completely clueless. Meanwhile, you start gathering evidence, photos, receipts, anything that proves the affair. I'll help from the inside. Sophia tells me everything." "Why would you betray your own sister?" "Because she's been treating our family like garbage ever since she started making money. Do you know she refused to help when Mom needed surgery last year? Said she couldn't afford it while she was buying $1,000 handbags." That was news to me. Sophia had told me her mother's surgery was covered by insurance. "There's more," Maya continued. "Sophia's been telling people that you're holding her back, that she could have been a partner at the firm by now if she wasn't married to a small-town mechanic." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I'd always known Sophia was ambitious, but I'd never thought she resented me for my career choice. "She said that?" "At the Chamber of Commerce mixer last month. Derek was there, nodding along like a devoted puppy. Half the business community heard her. No wonder I'd been getting strange looks at the grocery store lately. No wonder some of my regular customers had been taking their cars elsewhere." "So, what do you want me to do?" Maya pulled out a small device that looked like a USB drive. "This is a voice recorder. Plant it in her car, her purse, wherever you can. Get her talking about the affair. Once we have audio evidence, we can destroy both of them." I pocketed the device, though every instinct I had was screaming that this was a mistake. "What about you? What's your role in all this?" "I'm going to be your inside source, and—" She paused, looking almost embarrassed. "I'm going to help you make Sophia jealous." "How?" "By flirting with you, by making her think that maybe her boring husband isn't so boring after all." The idea was insane. Maya was attractive, manipulative, and clearly had her own agenda. Getting involved with her, even pretending to get involved, was asking for trouble, but it was also the first plan I'd heard that might actually work. "When do we start?" "Tonight." Sophia mentioned that Derek's taking her to dinner at Chez Laurent. Very romantic, very public. We're going to be there too. That evening, I found myself in the most expensive restaurant in town, wearing the only suit I owned and feeling completely out of place. Maya had transformed herself for the occasion. Elegant black dress, perfect makeup, the kind of sophisticated beauty that turned heads when she walked into a room. We were seated at a table with a clear view of the restaurant's main dining area. At 8:15, Sophia and Derek arrived. Watching them together was like being stabbed with a dull knife. They moved like a couple, Derek's hand on her back as the hostess led them to their table, Sophia laughing at something he whispered in her ear. She was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, and she looked radiant in a way I hadn't seen in years. "They look happy," Maya observed. "Thanks for pointing that out." "I'm just saying, look how animated she is. When's the last time she looked at you like that?" I couldn't remember. Maybe never. Derek ordered wine, expensive wine, based on the ceremony the sommelier went through. They toasted something, clinking glasses and gazing into each other's eyes like characters in a romantic movie. "This is torture," I muttered. "This is reconnaissance," Maya corrected. "Watch how they interact. See how comfortable they are? This isn't a new relationship. They've been doing this for months." She was right. Sophia and Derek moved together with the easy familiarity of an established couple. Derek knew how Sophia liked her wine. Sophia knew Derek's preferences when he consulted her about the menu. They had inside jokes, shared glances, a whole private world that excluded everyone else, including me. "Now comes the fun part," Maya said, standing up. "Follow my lead?" Before I could protest, she was walking toward their table, pulling me along behind her. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and avoid the confrontation that was about to happen. Instead, I found myself standing next to my wife's table while Maya smiled like a shark. "Sophia, what a surprise." My wife looked up, and for just a moment her face went completely blank. Then her training kicked in, the social skills she'd developed during years of networking and client meetings. "Maya, Mike, what are you doing here?" "Date night," Maya said, slipping her arm through mine. "Mike was telling me how he never gets to go anywhere nice, so I thought I'd show him how the other half lives." Sophia's eyes flicked between Maya and me, trying to process what she was seeing. Derek looked uncomfortable, probably wondering if his affair was about to be exposed in front of a restaurant full of people. "That's nice," Sophia said carefully. "Derek, you remember my husband Mike and my sister Maya?" Derek stood and extended his hand. "Good to see you, Mike." I shook his hand, resisting the urge to squeeze hard enough to break something. "Derek, how's the Morrison project coming along?" "Great progress. Sophia's been invaluable." "I'll bet she has." The comment hung in the air for a moment, loaded with implications that everyone at the table understood. Derek's smile faltered. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Well," Maya said brightly, "we should let you get back to your business meeting." "It's not a business meeting," Sophia said quickly. "Derek and I are just having dinner, as friends." "Of course," Maya agreed, "just like Mike and I are having dinner as friends. Although—" She squeezed my arm and smiled up at me. "Some friendships can develop into something more, can't they?" I saw the exact moment when Sophia realized what Maya was implying. Her face flushed, and her grip tightened on her wine glass. "Maya, could I speak with you privately?" "Sorry, sis. Mike and I have reservations. Enjoy your friendship." Maya steered me back to our table, leaving Sophia and Derek to stare after us. I could see them talking urgently, Derek leaning across the table to whisper something that made Sophia shake her head violently. "That was cruel," I said. "That was effective. Look at her." Sophia kept glancing over at our table, her conversation with Derek clearly suffering from the distraction. She looked angry, confused, and, if I wasn't imagining it, jealous. She can't stand the thought that you might be moving on," Maya continued. "Cheaters are like that. They want to have their cake and eat it too." "And what about you? What do you get out of this?" Maya's smile faded slightly. "I get to watch my perfect sister realize that she's not as smart as she thinks she is." There was real venom in her voice, years of resentment and sibling rivalry that I was only beginning to understand. Maya wasn't just helping me expose Sophia's affair. She was settling old scores. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of expensive food and tense glances across the restaurant. Sophia and Derek left before we did, but not before Sophia stopped by our table one more time. "Mike, could I speak with you outside?" I followed her to the restaurant's entrance, leaving Maya alone with her dessert and her satisfied smile. "What's going on?" Sophia demanded. "I'm having dinner with your sister. You're having dinner with Derek. I thought we were both expanding our social circles." "Don't be cute. Maya's using you to get back at me for something." "For what?" Sophia hesitated, realizing she'd said too much. "We had a disagreement about family stuff. She's being petty." "Maybe. Or maybe she just thinks I deserve better than a wife who works late every night and treats me like an embarrassment." "I don't treat you like an embarrassment." "No. Then why did you tell half the Chamber of Commerce that I'm holding back your career? Sophia's face went pale. Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true? Mike, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. The firm is very competitive, and sometimes I have to present myself in a certain way. By throwing your husband under the bus? By being realistic about our different goals and ambitions. The words stung because they contained just enough truth to hurt. Sophia had always been more ambitious than me, more driven to climb social and professional ladders. I'd been content to build a good business and provide for my family. Apparently that wasn't enough anymore. I see, I said. And Derek understands your goals and ambitions better than I do? Derek is a colleague. Derek is married, Sophia, just like you are. I'm not having this conversation in public. Then when? When are we going to have the conversation about what's really going on in our marriage? Sophia looked around nervously, aware that other restaurant patrons were starting to notice our heated discussion. At home. We'll talk at home. But we didn't talk at home. By the time I got there, after dropping Maya off at her condo and listening to her congratulate me on rattling Sophia's cage, my wife was already in bed with the lights off. She pretended to be asleep when I came into the bedroom, and I pretended to believe her. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up, leaving only a note saying she had an early meeting. I found Ava in the kitchen, eating cereal and looking like she hadn't slept well. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me like a sledgehammer. Why would you ask that? Because you guys have been acting weird lately, and Mom's been crying when she thinks nobody's looking. Sophia had been crying. That was news to me. I'd seen anger, frustration, and guilt, but not tears. Your mom and I are going through a rough patch, I said carefully. But we're going to work things out. Are you sure? No, I wasn't sure of anything anymore, but I wasn't going to burden my 17-year-old daughter with the details of her parents' failing marriage. I'm sure we both love you very much, I said instead. Whatever happens between your mom and me, that will never change. Ava nodded, but she didn't look convinced. She finished her cereal in silence and left for school without her usual goodbye hug. I was losing my family, piece by piece. My wife was cheating on me, my daughter was caught in the middle, and I was conspiring with my sister-in-law to destroy what was left of my marriage. But as I drove to work that morning, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. And anger, unlike sadness, was something I could use. It was time to stop playing defense and start fighting back. The voice recorder Maya had given me turned out to be a gold mine. Within a week, I had hours of audio featuring Sophia's phone conversations with Derek, including several that would have made a sailor blush. But the real revelation came from a conversation between Sophia and Maya that I recorded when Maya visited our house for what she called a sister bonding session. I don't know what's gotten into Mike lately, Sophia complained as they sat in our living room. He's been acting suspicious, asking questions about work, showing up places unexpectedly. Maybe he's finally growing a spine, Maya replied. You've been walking all over him for years. I haven't been walking all over him. I've been trying to build a career while he's content to stay in his little garage forever. So you decided to upgrade to Derek? There was a long pause. Then Sophia's voice, quieter but more honest than I'd heard it in months. Derek makes me feel alive again. He has ambition, goals, plans for the future. When I'm with him, I remember who I used to be before I got stuck in this small town with a small town husband. Stuck. That's how she saw our marriage, as something that trapped her. What about Mike's feelings? Maya asked. What about Ava? Ava will be fine. She's tough, like me. And Mike will probably be happier without me. He can find some nice local girl who'll be satisfied with his limited horizons. Limited horizons. 22 years of marriage. And that's what I'd become to her. A man with limited horizons. I sat in my office at the shop, listening to my wife dismiss our entire life together, and felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. The hurt was still there, but it was buried now under layers of anger and determination. Sophia wanted to play games? Fine. I'd learned a few things about strategy during my years in business. Time to put that knowledge to use. My first move was financial. I quietly transferred money from our joint accounts into a separate account that only I could access. Not all of it. I wasn't trying to leave Sophia penniless, just ensuring that she couldn't clean me out if things got ugly. I also made copies of all our important documents and stored them in a safety deposit box at a different bank. My second move was social. I started showing up at places where Sophia and Derek might be seen together. The country club where Derek played golf, the upscale bars where the business crowd gathered after work, the charity events that Sophia attended to network with potential clients. I didn't confront them. I didn't cause scenes. I just made sure they knew I was watching. The effect was immediate and satisfying. Derek started looking over his shoulder whenever he was in public. Sophia became jumpy, constantly checking her phone and making excuses to leave social gatherings early. Their comfortable affair was becoming stressful, and stress made people careless. My third move was the most dangerous. I started spending more time with Maya. It began innocently enough. Coffee meetings where she'd update me on Sophia's activities and help me plan my next steps. But Maya was a beautiful, intelligent woman who seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and opinions. After months of being treated like a burden by my wife, Maya's attention was intoxicating. "You're not what I expected," she told me one afternoon as we sat in her downtown condo. "Sophia always made you sound so ordinary." "Ordinary can be good," I said. "Ordinary people don't usually cheat on their spouses." "No, they don't." Maya moved closer on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "They also don't usually plan elaborate revenge schemes." "Is that what this is? Revenge? What would you call it?" I thought about that. What was I doing? Was I trying to save my marriage? Or was I trying to punish Sophia for betraying me? "Justice," I said finally. "I'm trying to balance the scales." Maya smiled and placed her hand on my arm. "I like that. Justice sounds much more noble than revenge." That night, I made a decision that crossed a line I'd never thought I'd cross. When Sophia asked about my day, I told her I'd spent the afternoon with Maya. "Maya?" Sophia's voice was sharp. "Why?" "She's been helping me understand some things about our marriage." "What kind of things?" "Things like how you really feel about our life together. Things like why you've been working so many late nights lately." Sophia went very still. "What did Maya tell you?" "She told me that you think I'm holding you back, that you're embarrassed by your small-town husband with his limited horizons." "I never said that." "Didn't you?" I pulled out my phone and played a snippet of the recording, just enough to let Sophia know that I'd heard her conversation with Maya, but not enough to reveal how much I actually knew. Sophia's face went white. "You recorded us?" "Maya recorded you. She thought I should know what my wife really thinks of me." "Mike, you don't understand. I was upset. I was venting. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I am ordinary. Maybe I don't have the ambition to climb corporate ladders or schmooze with the country club crowd, but at least I'm honest about who I am." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I don't sneak around behind my spouse's back. It means I don't lie about working late when I'm really at cheap motels with someone else's husband." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Sophia could deny it, could try to gaslight me into thinking I was imagining things, or she could finally tell the truth. She chose a third option: attack. "You want to talk about honesty," she snapped. "Let's talk about how you've been spending time with my sister behind my back. Let's talk about how you've been following me around town like some kind of stalker. I've been trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me for months. And I've been trying to figure out why my husband has suddenly become so paranoid and controlling." "Controlling? I'm controlling because I want to know where my wife goes at night?" "You're controlling because you can't stand the thought that I might have a life outside of this house and your garage." The argument escalated from there, voices rising, accusations flying, 22 years of buried resentment spilling out like poison from a broken container. Ava appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the shouting, but retreated to her room when she saw the fury on both our faces. It ended with Sophia storming out of the house, claiming she was going to stay at Maya's for the night. I knew she was really going to Derek's, but I didn't try to stop her. Instead, I called Maya. "She's on her way to Derek's," I reported. "Perfect. That gives us time to search her home office." "Maya, I don't think—" "Mike, she just walked out on you. She chose Derek over her own family. Don't you think it's time to stop playing nice?" She was right. I'd been trying to be the good guy, the understanding husband, the man who took the high road. Where had it gotten me? My wife was cheating, my daughter was miserable, and I was sitting alone in my house while my marriage fell apart. Time to embrace my inner villain. Maya arrived 20 minutes later with a laptop bag and a determined expression. Sophia keeps all her important files on her computer: financial records, client information, personal correspondence. If there's evidence of the affair, it'll be in there. "How do you know her password?" "Because my sister has used the same password for everything since college. Ambition 2001. She's nothing if not predictable." We spent the next 2 hours going through Sophia's digital life, and what we found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair with Derek had been going on for 8 months, not the few weeks I'd suspected. There were hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even receipts for lingerie that I'd never seen. But the real bombshell was in her email correspondence with Derek. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a future together. Derek was going to leave his wife. Sophia was going to file for divorce. They'd already looked at condos in the city where they could start their new life. "She's been planning to leave you for months," Maya said, reading over my shoulder. "Look at this. She's already consulted with a divorce attorney." The email from the lawyer was dated 6 weeks ago. It outlined Sophia's options for ending our marriage, including strategies for minimizing alimony and maximizing her share of our assets. "She wants to take half of your business," Maya continued, "and she's claiming that you've been emotionally abusive, that she's afraid of you." "Afraid of me? I've never laid a hand on her." "Doesn't matter. It's a common strategy in divorce proceedings. Make the husband look like a monster so the wife gets a better settlement." I stared at the screen, reading my wife's plans to destroy my reputation and steal my livelihood. The woman I'd loved for over 2 decades was preparing to ruin me, and she was doing it with the cold efficiency of a corporate takeover. "What do we do now?" I asked. Maya smiled, and there was something predatory in her expression. "Now we turn the tables. Sophia thinks she's playing chess while you're playing checkers. Time to show her that you've been playing poker all along." "Meaning?" "Meaning we're going to give her exactly what she wants. A war. But we're going to fight it on our terms, with our weapons, and we're going to make sure we're the only ones left standing when the smoke clears." I looked at Maya, beautiful, ruthless, dangerous Maya, and realized that I was about to cross a line that would change everything. Once I started down this path, there would be no going back. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, no happy endings. "I'm in," I said. Maya's smile widened. "Good, because tomorrow we start destroying your wife." The plan Maya and I developed was elegant in its simplicity. We were going to use Sophia's own weapons against her. If she wanted to play dirty, we'd show her what dirty really looked like. Our first target was Derek's wife, Jennifer. She was a pediatric nurse who worked long shifts at the children's hospital, which explained why she hadn't noticed her husband's extracurricular activities. Maya and I agreed that Jennifer deserved to know the truth, but we also knew that her reaction would be a crucial part of our strategy. I arranged to accidentally encounter Jennifer at the grocery store where she did her weekly shopping. It wasn't hard. Maya had provided me with Jennifer's schedule, which she'd obtained through social media stalking. "Jennifer Morrison?" She looked up from her shopping list, confused. "Yes?" "Mike Patterson. I think our spouses work together. Derek and my wife, Sophia?" "Oh, right. The architect. Derek mentions her sometimes." "I'll bet he does," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "They've been working very closely on that Morrison project." "Morrison project?" "The big downtown development. Derek hasn't told you about it?" Jennifer shook her head. "He doesn't usually talk about work stuff at home." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos Maya had taken of Derek and Sophia at various restaurants. This was last week. They were celebrating some kind of breakthrough on the project. Jennifer studied the photo, her expression growing troubled. "They look close." "Well, you know how it is with work partners. They spend so much time together, sometimes the lines get blurred." I let that comment hang in the air while Jennifer processed what she was seeing. The photo showed Derek and Sophia sitting very close together, his hand on her arm, both of them laughing intimately. "Where did you say this was taken?" "Chez Laurent, last Tuesday night. Sophia told me she was working late at the office." "Tuesday night, Derek said he had a client dinner." "Maybe they did. Maybe the client was each other." Jennifer's face had gone pale. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm not saying anything definitive, but if I were you, I might want to ask Derek some questions about his work schedule." I left Jennifer standing in the cereal aisle, staring at the photo on my phone. By the time I got home, Maya was already there, waiting with updates on Phase 2 of our plan. "I sent the photos to Derek's boss," she reported, "along with documentation of all the business dinners he's been charging to the company credit card. Turns out taking your mistress to expensive restaurants isn't considered a legitimate business expense." "What about Sophia's boss?" "That's where things get interesting. I did some digging into the Morrison project. The real Morrison project, not the codename for their affair. Guess what? It doesn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean Sophia and Derek have been billing hours to a fictional project. They've been stealing from their respective firms to finance their affair. The implications hit me like a truck. That's embezzlement." "That's career suicide," Maya corrected. "Once their bosses figure out what's been going on, both of them will be lucky to avoid criminal charges." "How do we make sure the bosses figure it out?" Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. We help them along. That afternoon, Maya and I visited both architectural firms, posing as potential clients interested in the Morrison project. It didn't take long for the receptionists to look confused and admit that they had no record of any such project. Maya made sure to ask detailed questions about the billing procedures, the project timeline, and the hours that had been charged to the account. By 5 o'clock, both Derek and Sophia were getting urgent calls from their respective bosses. I was at the shop when Sophia called me, her voice tight with panic. "Mike, I need to talk to you. There's been a misunderstanding at work." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "Someone's been spreading rumors about Derek and me. False rumors. My boss thinks we've been inappropriate." "Have you?" "Of course not. We're colleagues, nothing more." "Then you have nothing to worry about." "Mike, I need you to back me up on this. If anyone asks, you need to confirm that I've been working late on legitimate projects." "Which projects?" "The Morrison development." "The one that doesn't exist?" Silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a much smaller voice, "How did you know?" "I know a lot of things, Sophia. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, your career is about to implode, your affair is about to become public knowledge, and your husband is about to file for divorce. What's your plan for dealing with all that?" Another long silence. Then, "Mike, we need to talk. Face to face." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me at home in an hour." She hung up before I could respond. I looked at Maya, who had been listening to my side of the conversation with obvious satisfaction. "She's panicking," Maya observed. "Good. Panic makes people stupid." "What if she tries to pin everything on Derek? Claim she was an innocent victim?" "Then we release the audio recordings. Hard to claim innocence when there's evidence of you planning your husband's financial destruction." An hour later, I walked into my house to find Sophia pacing in the living room like a caged animal. She looked terrible. Makeup smeared, hair disheveled, her usually perfect appearance cracked and desperate. "Thank God you're here," she said, rushing toward me. "Mike, I need your help." "With what?" "Someone's trying to destroy my career. They've been spreading lies about Derek and me, making it look like we've been having an affair." "Have you been having an affair?" "No, I mean, it's complicated." "It's a yes or no question, Sophia." She collapsed onto the couch, her composure finally breaking completely. Yes, I've been having an affair with Derek, but it's not what you think." "What do I think?" "You think I'm some kind of monster who doesn't care about her family. But that's not true. I love you, Mike. I love Ava. I got lost somewhere along the way." Tears were streaming down her face now, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with 25 years ago, vulnerable and human and flawed. Then I remembered the emails about destroying my reputation, the plans to take half my business, the months of lies and manipulation. "How long?" I asked. 8 months. "And you were planning to leave me?" "I don't know. Maybe. I was confused." "You consulted a divorce attorney 6 weeks ago." Sophia's head snapped up. "How do you know that?" "I know about the lawyer. I know about the condo you and Derek looked at. I know about the financial strategy to minimize your alimony payments while maximizing your share of my assets." "Mike, I can explain." "I know about the fake Morrison project. I know about the embezzlement. I know about everything, Sophia." She stared at me with growing horror as she realized how completely her secrets had been exposed. "Who told you?" "Does it matter?" "It was Maya, wasn't it? My own sister. Maya didn't make you cheat. Maya didn't make you steal from your employer. Maya didn't make you plan to destroy your husband's life." "I wasn't trying to destroy your life." "No? Then what would you call it?" Sophia had no answer for that. She sat on our couch, crying and defeated, while I stood over her feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now you face the consequences of your choices." "What does that mean?" "It means Derek's wife knows about the affair. It means both your employers know about the embezzlement. It means the whole town is going to know exactly what kind of person you really are." "Mike, please. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No, we can't. You made your choice 8 months ago when you decided Derek was more important than your family. Now you get to live with that choice." "What about Ava?" "Ava will be fine. She'll live with me in the house you were planning to take away from us. You can't keep her from me. I won't have to. Once she knows the truth about what you've done, she'll make her own choice about which parent she wants to live with." Sophia's face crumpled. "You're destroying everything." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to let you destroy me." I walked toward the door, leaving Sophia crying on the couch. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "To pick up our daughter from school, and someone should be here for her when her world falls apart." I left Sophia alone in the house we'd shared for 15 years, and I didn't look back. The man who had walked into that room, the man who still hoped his marriage could be saved, was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. Someone who was just getting started. The abandoned amusement park on the outskirts of town had been closed for 10 years, but it still hosted the annual fall festival every October. Local vendors set up booths between the rusted rides, and families gathered to celebrate the changing season. It was the perfect venue for what I had planned, public enough to ensure an audience, nostalgic enough to make the setting memorable. Maya and I had spent 2 weeks orchestrating what she called the grand finale. Every detail had been planned, every contingency considered. By the time we were finished, everyone in town would know exactly what Sophia and Derek had done. The festival was in full swing when I arrived at 6 o'clock. Families wandered between booths selling caramel apples and handmade crafts, while children ran laughing through the maze of carnival games. The main stage was set up near the old carousel, where local bands and speakers would entertain the crowd throughout the evening. I'd volunteered to help with the sound system, which gave me access to the microphone and speakers. What the festival organizers didn't know was that I had my own presentation planned for 8 o'clock, right after the mayor's welcome speech. Sophia and Derek arrived separately, probably hoping to avoid being seen together, but Maya had made sure they both received invitations to a reconciliation meeting that would supposedly help us work through our marital problems like civilized adults. They were expecting a private conversation in a quiet corner of the festival grounds. Instead, they were about to become the main attraction. At 7:50, I took the stage. The crowd was still milling around, not paying much attention to the man adjusting the microphone. Perfect. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice carrying across the festival grounds through the powerful speaker system. "My name is Mike Patterson, and I have a story to tell you." People began to turn toward the stage, curious about the unscheduled speaker. I could see Sophia near the apple cider booth, her face going pale as she realized what was happening. Derek was by the ring toss game, looking around frantically for an escape route. "It's a story about marriage," I continued, "about trust, betrayal, and the price of deception. It's also a story about a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, except sometimes the people who need to know it most." More people were gathering now, drawn by the promise of drama. I could see familiar faces in the crowd, customers from my shop, parents from Ava's school, members of the business community who had heard Sophia's disparaging comments about her husband. 8 months ago," I said, "my wife started working late, really late. She was collaborating on a big project with her colleague Derek Morrison, and they were putting in long hours to make it perfect." I paused, letting the suspense build. Derek was pushing through the crowd now, trying to reach the stage, but Maya appeared beside him and whispered something that made him stop in his tracks. The thing is," I continued, "the Morrison project doesn't exist, never did. What did exist was a series of hotel receipts, restaurant charges, and romantic getaways, all billed to their respective companies as business expenses." A murmur went through the crowd. This was better than any soap opera. "Now, I know what you're thinking. Mike, why are you airing your dirty laundry in public? Why not handle this privately, like a gentleman?" I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system. "Because my wife didn't just cheat on me, she planned to destroy me." I played a snippet of the recording where Sophia discussed her divorce strategy with her lawyer, the part about claiming emotional abuse and taking half my business. The crowd's murmur turned into gasps of shock. Sophia was crying now, her hands covering her face as people stared at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. "But wait," I said, channeling the energy of a carnival barker. "There's more." Derek finally broke free from Maya and rushed toward the stage. "That's enough," he shouted. "You're humiliating innocent people." "Innocent?" I laughed into the microphone. "Derek, you're married. Sophia's married. Where exactly does innocence factor into adultery and embezzlement?" Derek climbed onto the stage, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "Turn off that microphone." "Or what? You'll hit me?" The crowd was completely focused on us now, sensing that violence might be imminent. Derek was bigger than me, younger, and clearly furious enough to do something stupid. "Go ahead," I taunted. "Show everyone what kind of man you really are. Hit a guy half your size in front of his whole community." Derek swung at me, a wild haymaker that telegraphed itself from miles away. 20 years of boxing training kicked in automatically. I ducked under his punch, stepped inside his guard, and landed a perfect uppercut to his solar plexus. Derek collapsed like a deflated balloon, gasping for air and clutching his stomach. The crowd cheered. Apparently, the local mechanic beating up the fancy lawyer was exactly the kind of entertainment they'd been hoping for. "Derek Morrison, everyone," I announced into the microphone. "Seducer of married women and embezzler of company funds. Let's hear it for him." The crowd's cheers turned into boos and catcalls. Derek struggled to his feet, his face purple with humiliation, and stumbled off the stage. "Now, where was I?" I continued. "Oh yes, the supporting cast in this little drama." Maya appeared at the edge of the stage, right on cue. She was carrying a tablet computer and wearing an expression of mock concern. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Maya Chen, my wife's sister and my co-conspirator in exposing this affair." Maya climbed onto the stage and took the microphone. "Thank you, Mike. I have to admit, I haven't been completely honest about my role in all this." She turned to face Sophia, who was still standing frozen by the cider booth. "The truth is, I didn't just help Mike expose your affair, sister dear. I orchestrated it." The crowd went silent, sensing that the real revelation was finally coming. "You see," Maya continued, "Sophia has always thought she was better than everyone else. Better than her family, better than her husband, better than this town. She needed to be reminded that actions have consequences." "What are you saying?" Sophia called out, her voice barely audible over the sound system. "I'm saying I introduced you to Derek at that Chamber of Commerce mixer. I'm saying I encouraged your little flirtation by telling you how unhappy you seemed in your marriage. I'm saying I helped arrange your first business meeting at the Lakeshore Inn." The crowd was riveted now, watching a family destroy itself in real time. "But why?" someone shouted from the audience. Maya smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen on a human face. "Because my perfect sister refused to help when our mother needed surgery. Because she spent years treating our family like we're beneath her. Because someone needed to knock her off her pedestal." She turned back to the microphone. "Oh, and Mike, I should probably mention that I've been recording our conversations for the past month, including the ones where you planned to humiliate your wife in public." My stomach dropped. "What? I'm sorry, but you're just as bad as Sophia. Maybe worse. At least she was motivated by love, even if it was misguided. You're motivated by pure revenge." Maya pulled out her phone and connected it to the sound system. My own voice filled the air, cold and calculating as I discussed the best ways to destroy Sophia's reputation. "Mike Patterson, everyone," Maya announced. "The wronged husband who became the villain." The crowd's sympathy, which had been firmly on my side, began to shift. People were looking at me with confusion and disgust, realizing that they had been manipulated into participating in a cruel public humiliation. "You planned this," I said to Maya, the pieces finally falling into place. "All of it." "Of course I did. Sophia needed to be punished for her arrogance. You needed to be punished for your self-righteousness, and I needed to prove that I'm smarter than both of you." "But why involve me?" "Because you were the perfect weapon. The wronged husband, the sympathetic victim, the man who just wanted justice. Except justice isn't what you wanted, was it, Mike? You wanted revenge. You wanted to hurt Sophia as badly as she hurt you." Maya was right, and everyone in the crowd could hear it in the recording she was playing. I hadn't been seeking justice. I'd been seeking destruction. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya continued, "you've just witnessed the collapse of a marriage, the destruction of several careers, and the revelation that sometimes there are no good guys in a story, just people making increasingly bad choices." She dropped the microphone and walked off the stage, leaving me standing alone in front of a crowd that no longer knew what to think. Sophia was gone. I could see her pushing through the crowd toward the parking lot, her face streaked with tears and mascara. Derek was nowhere to be seen. I looked out at the faces staring up at me, neighbors, customers, friends, and realized that I'd destroyed more than my marriage. I'd destroyed my reputation, my relationships, and my standing in the community I'd called home for over 20 years. The man who had started this journey as a victim had become something much worse, a cautionary tale about the price of revenge. I left the microphone on the stage and walked away from the festival, past the abandoned rides and empty game booths, toward a future that suddenly looked as bleak and desolate as the rusted carnival equipment around me. Behind me, the crowd slowly dispersed, already turning tonight's events into the kind of story that would be told and retold for years to come. The night Mike Patterson lost his mind, the night the whole town learned that sometimes the real villain is the person who thinks they're the hero, I got in my truck and drove home to an empty house where I sat in the dark and contemplated the ruins of everything I'd thought I was fighting to protect. Maya had been right about one thing. There were no good guys in this story, including me.